Darius, it is award season, and I think that you and I need to talk about what's been happening at the VMAs and Emmys.
You mean besides Ariana Grande thanking both her therapist and gay people in the same breath?
Yes.
Thank you to my therapists and gay people. I love you.
I mean, that was quite iconic. But what I'm talking about is the elephant in the room, or maybe I should say the teenage boy in the algorithm.
Netflix's Adolescence, which just won 8 Emmys, including Best Limited Series, for a show about a 13-year-old who murders a classmate after being radicalized online.
Right, and somehow this is going to be the least concerning thing that we're going to discuss here today.
So let's start with the pretty before we jump into the petty. The VMAs gave us everything. Lady Gaga performing from MSG, Sabrina Carpenter literally rising from manholes, and Mariah Carey finally getting her due with the Vanguard Award.
Right, and of course Mariah asking the real question, what in Sam Hell were you all waiting for, right? But while we're watching these female pop stars dominate, Adolescence was quietly sweeping the drama categories over at the Emmys.
And for those who haven't seen it, and honestly, maybe you should see it with your teenagers. Adolescence is about Jamie Miller, a 13-year-old from Northern England who murders his female classmate Katie after she rejects him and calls him an incel on social media.
Right, and this show is praised for being filmed in real time in one continuous shot per episode. It's honestly a very devastating show when you watch it, but here's the thing, it's not really about one disturbed kid. It's more about a systematic pipeline that's radicalizing boys as young as 12.
Because research from Dublin City University found that TikTok's algorithm feeds teenage boys misogynistic content within 9 minutes of them creating an account. 9 minutes.
And they created these fake accounts for 16-year-old boys, and they searched for innocent terms like gaming and gym tips. And within 23 minutes, they were already getting anti-feminist content. Within hours, they were getting full-blown male supremacist videos.
And by the end of the experiment, these fake teen accounts had feeds that were 78%, quote, alpha male and anti-feminist content.
And of course, the king of this toxic empire is Andrew Tate, who's currently facing criminal charges in multiple countries, by the way. But here's what's terrifying. 23% of teenage boys aged 15 to 16 still have a positive view of him.
I'll one-up you. Even more terrifying and shocking than that, 56% of young fathers under the age of 35 view this man favorably.
Wow.
So the call is indeed coming from inside the house.
Right, and so while we're watching Sabrina Carpenter win Best Pop Artist and hold up signs for trans rights, there's this entire parallel universe where teenage boys are being fed a steady diet of misogyny, and it's disguised as self-improvement.
And this is where award season gets truly interesting. Because the same week Adolescence wins all these Emmys, we're celebrating female empowerment at the VMAs. It's like we're actually living in 2 totally different realities.
And that makes you have to ask, which reality are we choosing to see here? The one where Ariana Grande thanks their therapists and gay people, or the one where algorithms are systematically grooming boys to hate women?
Because here's the thing, both are happening simultaneously. And that's what makes this so insidious.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton. Join me Mondays at 7 p.m. as I sit in conversation with incredible, dynamic, and complex Chicagoans who peel back the layers, living lessons, the joy, and the pain behind their confident smiles. Join the conversation Mondays at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and CAN-TV Plus app.
Gregory,
Darius.
I know based on today's show I should know this, but I can't wrap my arms around it fully. Could you define what the hell is the manosphere?
I will give it a best attempt at like a kind of large oversight.
Okay.
Obviously, I think a lot of people became familiar with the term manosphere from the previous election and certain candidates' decisions to go on podcast tours in the manosphere. But it actually predates all of that. It's from around like 2010 that the manosphere kind of spins up, and you see it on 4chan and some of it on Reddit. There's basically kind of like 4 areas. So let's kind of talk through them. So the way that a lot of, and I'll talk these like through a teenage boy kind of lens, okay?
Okay.
So a lot of teenage boys, well, I mean, since
Take me on the ride.
Yeah, let's take you on the ride. One category is pickup artists. So a lot of teenage boys are gonna come online to kind of find out either how do they approach women, or if they've been rejected by women, what could they have done better, right? So pickup artists is tales old as time. Some of us may remember that in the early 2000s, there was even a show called The Pickup Artist on VH1 that was a reality show. This involves things like how do you neg women, so use negativity to get women to be interested in you, and how do you present yourself in the best light as kind of someone who's desirable, who brings value. Kind of graduating from there, so that's a very like low entry point, very common entry point for a teenage boy to kind of go
Cruelty
into,
to
right?
women. Okay.
Not cruelty to women. We're not there yet on this on the cycle.
Just
It's
negative.
Just
Okay,
negative.
got it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's
Following.
negging. It's that picking on them. You know, they're pulling her ponytail.
It's the
kind of
gateway.
thing. It's the
Okay,
gateway.
got
But this
it.
is the gateway into the manosphere.
Okay.
When you have consumed enough of that nowadays, the algorithm is likely going to serve you up some men's right activist content. So men's right activists are men who kind of view that men are losing rights and standing in society because of feminism. So, right, if someone gains, you have to lose. And so they kind of go deep on that.
Okay.
The thing about that is that, as crazy as that sounds, that takes you into being red-pilled. Now, this obviously comes from, if you've seen...
Wait, is this The Matrix?
This is The Matrix, yes.
I've never seen the movies.
Oh, well, you need to see those too.
But I know enough to know this. Okay, all right.
Right, so when you're red-pilled, Neo takes the red pill and he sees the world as it is for what it is. And so these are men that see that feminism has... And these are men that see that, not me. I'm just I'm going to clarify. That believe that like feminism has destroyed the male's standing within the country, and kind of have like a nihilistic outlook and extreme, and tend to be kind of violent in their rhetoric towards women, using sexual assault and other kind of terminology. And the red pill men really do view women as property, essentially.
My God.
And then, if that doesn't sound terrible enough, the kind of last final phase, and this is, you know, if you can kind of get off of this the cycle, it's hopefully probably before you get on into the incel section. So incel,
Which is what Katie called the boy in adolescence.
yes,
Got it. Go on.
and that stands for involuntarily celibate. So these are yes. So these are men who are, for I guess lack of a better word, not able to seal the deal, or women don't find them attractive, or they are
An
not
attack against their masculinity.
Yes. So essentially, you know, they're not able to find a suitable partner, and it's not their choice; it's a woman's choice. And so, this is the most nihilistic, vitriolic kind of segment of the manosphere, and really where you don't want people to end, because this is like probably the darkest corner of the manosphere. And so that's kind of how a teenager would kind of go through this cycle.
And this is targeted to teenage boys.
Well, this is for all men, so you know, if you want to join in,
great.
you're more
At
welcome to,
57,
yes.
I can be this person as well.
You
Okay,
could be,
go on.
yes.
My God.
There are certainly 57-year-olds within every aspect
Yeah.
of this, sadly. But yeah, a lot of boys find themselves unintentionally being kind of sucked into the manosphere, and it's through the algorithms. You know, a lot. We kind of talked about quickly, you know, how just 23 minutes can really start to serve up that anti-misogynist content.
Yeah.
When you take a look at the social media and the algorithms and how those interact, it's all about rage bait, right? So if you were to take a look at what rage bait is, so a very simple definition is that just content that is meant to engage you, and that usually is through enragement of some sort of emotional response. But there's kind of like this like 3-step process here that creating rage bait content works, right? So if you think about the rage baiting in these kind of 4 different cycles, it's why do women not like me, right? It's like maybe how you get there, or why did this girl reject me? And then for those categories can be, it's not you, it's them. You know, women are inherently less valuable than male. They only respond to high value males. She's a low value woman. Like, this is actual kind of terminology.
Terms I've heard now that you're putting it all together.
Yes.
My goodness.
Not lovely terms. But you kind of move through these cycles, right? So if people are stopping and watching, whether they agree or not, that algorithm saying, well, you spent time dwelling on it. So you either loved it or you hated it, but let's serve it up more to other people because people are stopping interacting. So whether it's a positive reaction or a negative reaction, if you're getting a lot of reactions out of this content you're putting out, the algorithm is then saying, there's something here that people like, you know, in terms of like, doesn't have to be positive, but they're engaging with it. So let's go ahead and serve this up into other streams for other users who are of a similar profile for swiping. So this content then kind of goes further and wider. And the worst part is that a lot of these people are monetizing off of it. So not just the platforms themselves, but like the actual content creators are creating things to sell and hawk. The Tates of the world. He had Hustler University, for example, you know, and that's to show you how to make all this money and smoke cigars and be a top alpha male, you know, only to have it like come out that you're being pursued by multiple countries now for sex trafficking and for all these things that I would say make you a low value male, but
or no value.
Or no value male. Yeah.
I see consistent themes here. And the other thing here, in addition to algorithms, technology, the algorithms, the reaching someone through the enragement. All the way back to our conversation about reality TV, there are these themes. Get someone enraged. That is the best way to get them engaged, and then make a profit off of it, monetize everything. Is it wrong? Is it reasonable for me to be concerned? Because I think you said unsuspectingly, but somebody is behind all of this. It is dark, like much of what's happening in the government of our country currently, but I'm not uncertain that fairly smart people are behind it.
Well, you know, it'd be interesting to fully answer that question with truth and transparency, which is something that we rarely get to do. There have been 4 bills that have failed in Congress to bring transparency to the algorithms. Now, that said, we know that these platforms do their own internal research. I mean, Meta basically told them themselves, we know that, you know, the research came out that teen girls...
They said the quiet part out loud.
Well, I mean, they said yes, that teen girls were being mentally harmed and then inflicting physical self-harm on themselves from being on the Instagram platform. And that kind of sat with people, but didn't really go beyond that. It wasn't strong enough or compelling enough for some reason to really say like, hey, we should really see what is going on, how these algorithms work and how they're influencing our society, how they're influencing our youth. You know, I mean, it's interesting for all the talk about TikTok and the Chinese government controlling, owning that. Like, people don't fully understand how it works, and we don't understand what it means now that it's going to be invested in by, you know, some Americans. That's a different topic for a different day. But essentially, yeah, like from a policy standpoint, we've failed the country and we failed children to try to say, let's put some safeguards and barriers around it.
And for the usual reason, we really could be politicians if we didn't have souls. For the usual reasons why things don't, that we all know through just logic and good common sense. But for the very same reason that most things don't get pushed, it feels like there's a money trail that if I followed that, I would understand why we don't have quite the appetite to do something about this. Is that reasonable, that profits and those who have the money don't want us to deal with this?
I mean, I think that's reasonable. I think that, and you again saw this in the last election cycle, you know, in 2020, Trump was willing to ban TikTok, and
Yes.
Congress was willing to ban TikTok. Congress did that. He revoked it, brokered a deal to sell it because he saw what success he could have in influencing and winning over people to help get him elected. I think every politician kind of sees that now. And that's just from the day-to-day tactical, think of that as like new grassroots politics, let alone all the money that the tech industry has to make or break you. And quite frankly, like if you look right now at the market, you have AI that is, creating a massive bubble, and all this kind of tax into that tech sector. So yes.
And while so if I were to do a takeaway from this, and I'd like to come away with takeaways, we are teaching through the algorithm, because that's anonymous. We don't have to blame the humans behind it, apparently, because they have too much money. We are teaching young women to hate themselves, and we're teaching men to hate young women, or hate women entirely, see them as second class. Is that about? I know we do paths and circles and charts and things.
That about sums it up. And then, I would say that when everyone kind of comes back to like regulating any kind of tech, there's two things that people always talk about. One is Section 230, which essentially gives the platforms, immunity from being sued. So if you think about the New York Times, if they publish something online and it's libelous, they can be sued. Well, Section 230 was written so that if you're just hosting content, these aren't TikTok's words, these aren't Meta's words, these are Doris's words. Mine, I'm just providing form for them to post them.
Oh, more cover.
Yeah, it's more cover for them. Okay. So we could really kind of use that and say, okay, we understand that, but your algorithm is taking these words and propagating them out there. So what if we make you responsible for how you disseminate the information further in people's feeds? I think that's one
accountability.
way. Accountability. So one way we could do it, and it's not impossible because you have the possibility of turning things up and down already that we know. If you want to amplify messages, just like if you want to buy ads, we can dig down deep into people's demographics. So like we could just exclude those who are in those formative development years from receiving some of this nasty content, damaging content, very easily if we wanted to. So that's one way. And I think the other way is not talking about this as necessarily, what we love to do a lot in this country is put it on personal choice and personal freedom. I think that if I may, the red states that are doing the age verifications, upload your license if you want to consume any kind of pornographic material, should really apply that same kind of mentality also to social media, because both are damaging in different ways to kids. And quite frankly, I think that we probably need children to have a safer space online, whether that's AI, whether that's social media, to be able to keep up with technology, but not to be exposed to the most harmful aspects of it that we could easily, as adults, manage.
And the doors of the church are open.
On the next episode of Chicago Newsroom 2.0, host Andy Zopp and guest co-host Deborah Witzberg examine the latest developments on the government shutdown and federal troop deployment in Chicago. Plus, exploring how art and activism intersect through comics, theater, and Chicago's creative economy. Tune in Thursday, October 16th at 7 p.m. Watch it on CanTV 19, cantv.org, or on the CanTV Plus app. Hyperlocal news and critical analysis. Experience the power of community television.
When you commit to authentic voices, when you trust powerful stories, recognition follows. 2 Emmy nominations, the first in our history. Stream the Emmy-nominated programs now on cantv.org or on the CanTV Plus app. CanTV. Experience the power of community television.
Gregory, what you just said about boys being sold a fantasy of dominance that never existed, that's not just cultural commentary. That is a direct threat to an entire generation's emotional development.
Exactly.
And I think you need to unpack that. So profoundly petty time here, sir. 7 minutes. All yours. Let it rip.
Okay, well, you know what makes me absolutely just livid about this entire topic? It's the sheer audacity of these manosphere grifters who are convincing literally an entire generation of boys that their problems stem from women having rights. Let me paint you a picture, okay, of the typical Andrew Tate fan. He's 15, maybe 16. He's been rejected by a girl he liked. It's devastating at that age. We've all been there in some way, shape, or form. He goes online and he's looking for support. Maybe he just wants to know and understand why it hurts so much to be rejected by a girl that he likes. And here's where I need to get personal for just one moment, if you'll allow it.
Absolutely.
You know, I was that confused teenager once. Now, obviously, it was not about girls, but it was more about where do I fit in a world that has a very narrow idea about what boys should be. You know, I felt rejection, inadequacy, you know, that desperate need to understand my place as a man, essentially. But the difference here is that when I went looking for answers, I found communities that taught me the problem wasn't with me as much as it was with the system that demanded I shrink myself to fit into someone else's definition of what masculinity is. Now, these boys are finding the exact opposite message, okay? And within minutes, I mean, literally, research proves this. Within minutes, the algorithm starts feeding them content that says, it's not your fault. Women are the problem. They're biologically programmed to reject you.
My God.
Nice guys like you don't get women like that. You need to become an alpha. You need to get what you deserve as an alpha. And here's, I think, the most sick part of it. These influencers know exactly what they're doing. They're targeting boys at their most vulnerable moment. And instead of teaching them empathy and emotional intelligence, they're selling them a fantasy of dominance that never actually existed. Because let's talk about this traditional masculinity that they're peddling. When was this the golden age? The 1950s, when men couldn't express emotions, or anyone who deviated from rigid gender roles was ostracized and criminalized. You know, the era when real men couldn't be vulnerable, couldn't cry, couldn't form deep friendships. As a gay man, I can tell you the real would have destroyed me. And it's destroying these boys too, but just in a different way. What makes me profoundly petty is that these predators are taking boys, legitimate pain, the confusion of adolescence, the fear of not measuring up, and they're weaponizing it against the very people who could help them heal.
Yeah.
Instead of teaching them that real masculinity means empathy, emotional intelligence, and the courage to be vulnerable, they're selling them a performance of dominance that leaves them more isolated and more angry than ever. And, you know, if I think about who I could have become if I'd fallen into that pipeline, if instead of learning to embrace my authentic self, I've been taught to resent everyone who reminded me of my insecurity, it's just mind-blowing where I could have been.
Whew. Okay. Church, preach. That's exactly, we've talked about this. That is exactly why representation matters so damn much.
Yeah.
Boys need to be able to see different models of masculinity, men who lead with empathy, who aren't threatened by others' success.
Right, because the alternative is what we see in adolescence, right?
Yeah.
It's a generation of boys so lost and so angry that they turn to violence. And that's not just tragic for their victims, it's tragic for these boys too.
For more than 40 years, CAN TV has been Chicago's voice, your voice. We've shared your stories, amplified your concerns, and celebrated your triumphs. Now we want to hear from you. What programs matter most? What issues should we cover? How can we better serve your community? Visit cantv.org/feedback today. CAN TV. Experience the power of community television.
All right, my favorite segment, Pretty Petty Please time. So tell me, Gregory, that people are finally pushing back on this digital radicalization. Tell me that.
Darius, I'm sorry to break to you, but they're not.
Huh?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding with you. I'm sorry. I had to give you a pause, a beat there. No, they really are. And I think where we should probably start is, let's start with our favorite, top G himself, Andrew Tate.
Okay. Currently facing 6 legal investigations across 3 countries.
Yep.
Romania hit him with human trafficking, rape, and organized crime charges. The UK wants him for rape and tax evasion. And right here in the good old US of A, Florida just opened a criminal investigation when he tried to flee there.
Right. And now keep in mind that this is like the man who taught boys that women are property, and now he's about to become property of multiple prison systems. And I think if you ask me, that like the irony here is just like chef's kiss, right?
And speaking of money, UK authorities just seized £2.8 million from the Tate brothers for unpaid taxes. So that Bugatti collection isn't looking so impressive when you're paying it back to the government, I guess.
Right. Good old taxes get you every single time,
My
right?
God.
But here's like a positive plot twist, though. That 2.8 million pounds that they seized, they're going to use those funds to support victims of violence against women and girls. So, this is poetic justice that is just quite honestly immaculate.
Love that. You remember when Tate was banned from major platforms in 2022?
Yep.
He has been trying since to rebuild on smaller sites, but Apple and Google removed his Real World app from their stores.
Oh, thank God, right? And the irony here is that turns out that tech companies, they don't want to be associated with pyramid schemes that are targeting teenagers. I mean, who could have predicted this shocking turn of events?
My goodness. And meanwhile, schools across the UK are reporting an uptick in misogynistic behavior from boys who are directly quoting Tate. Teachers are literally having to deprogram children from online radicalization. Radicalization and children in the same sentence.
Yeah. And, Darius, here in the U.S., the Department of Education is now mandating digital literacy courses starting in elementary school. So
good.
Nothing kind of says like your movement is toxic, like having to teach 8-year-olds how to recognize your propaganda.
And here's my personal favorite, strange word to use for this sort of an episode, but my personal favorite, adolescents just made Tate's ideology the villain in an Emmy-winning drama. His quote-unquote philosophy is now literally a character. It is the bad guy in appointment television.
Exactly. And I would maybe argue that when your real view becomes the cautionary tale in prestige TV, you have probably just officially lost the culture war.
The whole manosphere is facing a reckoning. YouTube is cracking down on channels promoting misogyny.
Yep.
TikTok is updating the algorithm to reduce harmful content to minors.
Allegedly. But allegedly, right? I mean, this is what they say. But it's almost like society has kind of decided that teaching children to hate half the population maybe isn't actually a sustainable business model.
Wow. Even politically, this is backfiring. Politically, that's saying something. Young women are voting in record numbers, God bless them, specifically citing online misogyny as their motivation. The gender gap among Gen Z voters is the largest in our history.
Right, and so I would say to that, like, congratulations to the manosphere. Like, you've created your own opposition party, so kudos.
So let's just talk about the ultimate FAFO moment. Research shows that boys who leave these toxic communities, they actually report better mental health, stronger relationships, and actual success with dating real human beings.
Right, because it's almost like treating women as human beings is, more attractive than treating them as achievements to unlock. I mean, Darius, it's a revolutionary concept. I know, it truly is.
So as we watch adolescents collect Emmy after Emmy for showing us in actual crises, remember, the future is being written by the choices we make today about how we are raising our children.
Exactly. And the question is, will we let algorithms parent our boys, or will we step up and teach them that the real strength comes from empathy, not dominance?
And as gay men who, both of us, survived the suffocating expectations of traditional masculinity, we know this is indeed possible. These boys can learn what we learned, that authenticity is stronger than performance, that empathy is more powerful than dominance.
Exactly. And, this story isn't over, but at least now we know what we're up against to help save our youth.
And that's this week's episode of Petty and Profound, where the pettiest observations reveal the most profound truths about our entire culture.
And until next time, stay petty and stay profound.